Hi everybody, this is Della from The Beauty of Play. We just finished our Shakespeare unit, and I wanted to share with you the books, materials, and the projects that we did for this unit. So the book that we used for the spine of this unit was Shakespeare, His Work, and His World by Michael Rosen. This is a phenomenal book. He does a wonderful job, forgive my pun, setting the scene. He goes over what they actually know about Shakespeare, which is not a whole lot, but they do talk about the world that Shakespeare lived in and what it was like at the school that he likely went to and what London was like and the different theaters. And it was great about contextualization, putting things in context and how they differed from what we view today. In addition to that, I know I say this about all the books that I choose, but the illustrations really are gorgeous. And you will notice that one illustration in particular was the one that I used for the chalkboard drawing, this one right here. Another great aspect about this book is that it has quotes from Shakespeare's plays sprinkled throughout the book. In addition to that, in the back, it goes over the basic of each of his plays. We didn't really need this part of the book, but we did go over A Midsummer Night's Dream, since that was the play that was really our focus for this unit. So, wonderful book, Shakespeare, His Work, and His World by Michael Rosen. That was our spine. In addition, we used a stage full of Shakespeare's stories. Now, this book, there's a whole series from this publisher of the same kind of thing. I used this book for the retelling of the plays, and again, it did a wonderful job. It has 12 plays in total. The play that we really focused on throughout the entire unit, we chose poems from that play or prose from that play to memorize for recitation. We made characters from that play, was Midsummer Night's Dream. And if you have watched or read that story or even read the retelling of that story, you know that play has some nuances that is difficult to communicate to children. Things that are humorous and funny. And this book did a fabulous job with that play in particular, but really with all of them. We were actually laughing out loud. So it did a fabulous job conveying that humor to her. The illustrations are nice, but the stories are my favorite. They do a really good job telling Shakespeare's plays. So we read stories almost every day, not every day, but quite often from this book. Our read aloud, and I'm really pleased with the read aloud that worked out for this unit. The first read aloud that we read was the Shakespeare Stiller, and it's set in Shakespeare's time. It's about an orphan named Widge, and he ends up becoming an apprentice for the Lord Chamberlain's men, and that's what Shakespeare's troupe was called before King James came to the throne. So we also are reading the sequel. We're finishing up the sequel to this one, which is Shakespeare's Scribe by the same author. And both of them do a really good job incorporating the things that we were learning. For instance, there is a portion in the book where the Earl of Essex has attempted a coup with Queen Elizabeth, and that is in here the one that we're reading now has information on the Black Plague and how it affected the theaters. So these turned out to be really good. There was a lot of interweaving amongst facts from the various books that we've been reading, which was really nice. For poetry tea time, which we did every single week for this unit, that doesn't usually happen for us, but I made that an effort. we used Poetry for Kids, William Shakespeare. It also had beautiful illustrations, but in addition to that, I feel like it did a really good job selecting various poems that are well known and popular from Shakespeare's plays, but also pieces and parts of Shakespeare's play that would be more appealing and understood by children. So I was really happy with this book. In addition to that, we chose for poetry recitation the last monologue by Puck, where he tells the audience good night, and it's such a lovely rhythm, simple rhythm. Puck is one of my favorite characters in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Okay, so in addition to those books, we read several other books. This book, Will's Words, does go over a little bit about the life and times of Shakespeare, but what I chose it for was that it goes over the common words that we use now and that have come from Shakespeare. So it goes over what the words are and what it means, especially if it's different from today, and where it came from. And it's kind of funny because as she's telling the story, I'm sure this is purposeful, but she ends up using a lot of Shakespeare's phrases, and those are in bold, and then she describes them over here. The illustrations are cute. One of the things that I really love about this is this different perspectives around the Globe Theater. So you have this aerial perspective here, and then a closer picture, and then you have the view going into the Globe, and then the back side, behind the scenes, and then you have the on stage and the audience. And eventually, my favorite one here is this one right here, where you have the view from the balcony behind the stage. I just thought that was a really neat view. Okay, so this book we did not end up using. This is A Midsummer Night's Dream from Shakespeare Can Be Fun. I did use this with my older child. It's a great book. It goes over the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream in a way that children can easily understand it, but we just didn't get to that book. This one, you know how much I love interactive books. This book is an interactive book. It is a pop-up. So you can open this right here and see a picture of the globe. On the inside over here is an envelope that has the different characters. And these little books, these are copies of each other, are scenes from various plays. In addition to that, this area over here is a small book about the Globe and Shakespeare's times. And the illustrations here are very beautiful as well. We really enjoyed playing with this book, especially the pop-up globe. This book was about Shakespeare and the Globe. This is one of my favorite authors, and the wonderful thing about this book is that it does go over the life of Shakespeare, but it really goes over the life of the globe. And it talks about the fire and re-roofing it, and then the second fire that destroyed it, and the reconstruction in the modern times. It also goes over the different ways of making, like how they built the globe, which I found really fascinating. This book was our history portion. It's by Diane Stanley. She's a favorite author of mine for history books. She just does she's very thorough and does a really good job telling the story of history. I also enjoy her illustrations in the book. And so we use this one for the nonfiction, the factual part of our unit, in the aspect as how it related directly to Shakespeare. There's a picture of the globe on fire. All right, so a couple different reference books that we used. This is really, I think, for older children, but this is a fabulous book. I wish there was an author that wrote a book for every one of Shakespeare's plays and every piece of literature on the planet. You can tell the author has a major enthusiasm for Shakespeare's work. He does a fabulous job. His first unit on this is of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and that is one of the reasons why that I chose to focus on that play. He talks about memorization in the book and the importance of that, and we did memorize several of the plays, although I don't think that that's absolutely necessary to appreciate Shakespeare. And then he just goes over what the words mean and how the people would have perceived it. He goes over things, double meanings that we wouldn't know. It's a really excellent book. I use this for reference. And then I also use our famous family trees that was suggested to me by Megan Nichols as another reference point. Both Queen Elizabeth and William Shakespeare are in this reference book. And so we read through the information on this and then talked about his family. And then we did also with Queen Elizabeth, especially Henry VIII is so difficult to keep up with. Like, this was really helpful to his lineage and who's who. All right, so some of the projects that we went over. We used our diversity dolls. I have a video on naturally dyeing peg dolls to get more color gradients. You can see that in my YouTube videos. We used these to create characters from A Midsummer Night's Dream. So this is Puck, because he's green. He's a little fairy. And she sewed several little fairy costumes. We only did the very main characters. We did Puck and the fairy princess, the fairy queen and king, and then Lysander and Helena and the other two lovers, and then, of course, Bottoms. So that was a nice project for her to do. She did most of the sewing and the stitching while I was doing read aloud, and it was something nice to keep her hands busy during the lessons. So the other projects that we did, I had wanted to make, this is a free printout. I'll give you the link on my blog post on my website. This is a free printout of a tiny reproduction of the globe. And I was a little concerned that we might not be able to, it might be a little difficult because of the size, it's so small, but it turned out that it worked out just fine. She did a great job with it. I had wanted to do something a little larger, but she really wanted to do the smaller version. It's from papertoys.com, and I'll link that on my website. It was an relatively easy, fun project for her at age 10. It took us probably around 2 days to finish that project. And the other thing that she did was create these paper dolls. This is from, and I talk about this in my Renaissance video and blog, famous figures of the Renaissance. And it has a handful of the most famous people in the Renaissance. And it has 2 sets. It has a little bit of information in the beginning, and it has 2 sets of dolls for each one. One that you can color and come up with your own clothing, and the other that already has the clothing and the colors typical at the time period. She really enjoyed these. I first saw these on Hannah's with Pepper and Pine's YouTube channel. I had been eyeing it for a while, but after I saw her review on it and how much her daughter enjoyed it, we also bought it, and I was not disappointed. My daughter enjoyed them really well too. And they're fairly simple to put together. They do take a little bit of time, but they are fairly simple. We really enjoyed them. We did several of the figures for the Renaissance unit, and for this unit, she did William Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth, because we just happened to not have done Queen Elizabeth quite yet. So there was that. And the last thing that I was going to share with you is that we memorized 2 poems. I chose one that's really famous from Oberon, when he's getting ready to put the juice into Queen Titania's eyes. And then we chose this when Puck is speaking to the audience, telling them good night. And it was relatively easy for her to do this. She seems to catch on to these. I was a little surprised. But those were the 2 poems that we memorized. This unit was about 3 weeks. And almost every day we did some kind of recitation. So that is it for our Shakespeare unit. Thank you for following along. Hope you enjoyed it. You can hit subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and hit like if you enjoyed this. Thank you.